Then take this, please eat.
You don't even know who I am.
I didn't do it because I expect anything.
Remember this, because one day you'll understand.
Kindness is never wasted, Adesewa. Welcome to your new office, Managing Director.
What happened when a billionaire disguises himself as a poor homeless man and walks into his own company looking for a job? The security guards laughed at him. The HR manager humiliates him. But one young woman named Adesewa sees beyond his dirty clothes and offers him food. What she doesn't know is that the man she just helped is Adekunle Adebayo, the billionaire owner of the company, and he is secretly investigating a massive corruption scheme inside his own business. But when Adekunle finally reveals his identity, his decision about Adesewa leaves everyone completely shocked. Please enjoy this story.
At exactly 7:15 on a Monday morning, a man who looked like he had spent the night beneath a bridge stood across the road from the headquarters of one of the most powerful companies in Lagos. Nobody looking at him would have guessed that he was a billionaire. Nobody would have imagined that the building standing proudly in front of him belonged to him. Nobody would have believed that the security guards preparing to chase him away were employees of a company he had built from nothing. His name was Adekunle Adebayo. For more than 20 years, Adekunle had built an empire that stretched across construction, real estate, logistics, manufacturing, hospitality, and technology. His name appeared in business magazines. Politicians attended his events. Entrepreneurs asked him for advice. Young Nigerians watched interviews about his journey and dreamed of becoming like him. But on that morning, Adekunle had deliberately erased every visible sign of his wealth. His expensive suit had disappeared. His gold wristwatch was locked inside a safe at home. His polished shoes had been replaced with worn-out slippers. His hair had been made deliberately rough. A fake beard covered part of his face. His normally smooth skin had been darkened with makeup, while carefully applied dirt made him appear exhausted. He wore an old brown shirt with loose threads around the collar and a pair of faded trousers that looked as though they had belonged to someone else. A dirty nylon bag hung from his shoulder. Inside that bag was almost nothing. A bottle of water, a piece of cloth, a small phone, and one envelope containing documents that could eventually destroy some of the most powerful people inside his company. Adekunle stood there for several minutes without moving. His eyes remained fixed on the 22-story glass building. A huge silver sign stood above the entrance. Adebayo Holdings International. Beneath it were words he had personally chosen years earlier. Building Africa. Creating the future. Adekunle almost laughed when he read them. He had always believed that a company was more than buildings and money. He believed a company was a family. He believed employees deserved dignity. He believed that a person should never be judged by the clothes they wore or the money in their bank account. Those beliefs had been printed in the company's employee handbook. They had been repeated during training sessions. They had appeared in speeches he delivered at annual staff meetings. But recently, Adekunle had begun to wonder whether those values still existed when he wasn't around. For 6 months, strange reports had been reaching him. Expenses were rising. Procurement costs had increased without explanation. Several employees had resigned unexpectedly. A number of internal complaints had disappeared. Some departments appeared to be spending far more money than their projects required. Adekunle's trusted financial team had investigated, but every time they looked into one suspicious transaction, the trail seemed to disappear. It was as though someone inside the company knew exactly how to hide their tracks. At first, Adekunle suspected incompetence. Then he suspected corruption. But something bothered him more than the missing money. He began receiving complaints from ordinary employees. Some claimed that managers treated junior workers badly. Others said poor applicants were mocked. A former employee claimed that human resources had threatened workers who asked questions. Another said people were being promoted based on connections instead of competence. Adekunle could have launched a formal investigation. He could have called an emergency board meeting. He could have ordered his lawyers to examine every account. But he knew what would happen. The moment his name appeared on an investigation, everyone would become careful. Documents would disappear. People would suddenly become loyal. Employees would rehearse their answers. Managers would behave perfectly. Adekunle didn't want to see how his employees behaved when they knew the owner was watching. He wanted to see how they behaved when they thought he was nobody. That was why he had created the disguise. That was why he was standing outside his own company dressed like a homeless man. He took a deep breath. Then he crossed the road. He walked toward the gate. The first security guard to notice him was Babatunde Ajayi. Babatunde had worked for Adebayo Holdings for almost 9 years. He was a broad-shouldered man in his late 30s who took pride in his uniform and considered himself an important part of the company's security system. He noticed Adekunle immediately. His eyes moved from Adekunle's head to his feet. Then he frowned. "Oga." Adekunle stopped. "Yes. Where are you going?" "I want to enter the company." Babatunde laughed. "You want to enter?" "Yes." "For what?" "I heard there may be a job." Babatunde looked at the other guards standing nearby. Adekunle Adebayo was drinking coffee. When he heard the word job, he started laughing. "What kind of job?" Adekunle asked. "Any job," Adekunle answered. "Any job?" "Yes." "Security. If you need security." Adekunle laughed. "Look at him." Adekunle remained quiet. Babatunde crossed his arms. "Cleaning?" "Yes." "Carrying things?" "Yes." "You will do anything? Anything honest?" Babatunde looked at him again. "Do you know what company this is?" "Adebayo Holdings." Adekunle stopped laughing for a moment. "You know the company?" "Yes." "Then why are you standing here?" "I heard they employ people." Babatunde shook his head. "My friend, this is not a roadside shop." "I know. This is a corporate headquarters." "I know. Look at yourself." Adekunle looked down. "I know how I look." "Then you should know you cannot enter." "I only want to apply for a job." "There is a recruitment process." "I can follow the process." Babatunde laughed. "You?" "Yes." "Do you have an appointment?" "No." "Do you have an application?" "Not yet." "Then leave." Adekunle remained where he was. "Please let me speak with someone in human resources." Babatunde's expression changed. "Are you not hearing me?" "I am hearing you." "Then move." "I am only asking for an opportunity." "People like you always come here asking for opportunities." Adekunle looked at him. "What do you mean?" Babatunde pointed at his clothes. "You think because this company is big, anybody can walk in and ask for work?" Adekunle swallowed. "No." "Then go." "I can work." "I didn't ask whether you can work." "Then what are you asking?" "I'm asking you to leave." Adekunle looked at the entrance. He could have walked through the gate without permission. He could have called the head of security. He could have called the managing director. He could have called his personal assistant and ordered everyone at the gate to stand aside. But that would defeat the purpose. He had come here to learn. So he stepped backward. Then a voice came from behind them. "Wait." Everyone turned. A young woman stood near the reception entrance. She was wearing a simple navy blue blouse and black trousers. She carried a folder under one arm and a handbag under the other. Her name was Adesewa Ogunleye. She was 29 years old. She worked in the accounts department. Unlike many employees who rushed through the entrance every morning without noticing what happened around them, Adesewa had stopped because she had heard the conversation. She looked at Adekunle, then at the security guards. "What happened?" Babatunde answered. "He wants to enter." "Why?" "He says he wants a job." Adesewa looked at Adekunle. "Is that true?" "Yes." "What kind of job?" "Anything." She studied his face. He looked tired. His lips were dry. His clothes were dirty. His slippers were worn. He looked like a man who had been rejected by life. Adesewa looked at the guards again. "Why are you sending him away?" Babatunde frowned. Madam, look at him. I am looking at him. He doesn't have an appointment. Does every person looking for work need an appointment before asking about a vacancy? This is a corporate environment. I know. Babatunde lowered his voice. Please, madam, don't involve yourself. Adesewa ignored him. She looked at Adekunle. Have you eaten? Adekunle was surprised by the question. He slowly shook his head. No. Adesewa opened her handbag. She removed a wrapped piece of bread and a bottle of water. Take this. Adekunle stared at the food. For several seconds, he didn't move. Take it, she repeated. He accepted it. Thank you. You are welcome. Then she turned toward the security guards. I'll take him inside. Babatunde immediately objected. Madam, he isn't doing anything wrong. This is against protocol. Then let HR decide whether he qualifies. Femi Balogun, the security supervisor, had been watching from a short distance. He walked over. Adesewa, what are you doing? I'm taking him to HR. Femi looked at Adekunle. Why? He wants a job. Femi sighed. Madam, we cannot allow everybody to enter. Then accompany us. Femi looked irritated. Adesewa turned to Adekunle. Come. Adekunle followed her. As he crossed the gate, he felt something strange. He had entered this building hundreds of times. He had walked through the lobby wearing suits worth millions. People had opened doors for him. People had smiled before he even spoke. Executives had rushed toward him. Employees had greeted him with exaggerated respect. But he had never felt the building the way he felt it that morning. For the first time, he wasn't entering as the owner. He was entering as someone nobody wanted. And that difference was about to teach him more than 20 years of business meetings ever had. Adesewa led him through the lobby. People stared. Some whispered. One woman covered her nose as Adekunle passed. A young employee laughed quietly. Another man looked at him and shook his head. Adesewa ignored them. She pointed toward a waiting area. Sit here. Adekunle sat. I'll find out whether HR can see you. Thank you. She smiled. Don't worry. Then she walked away. Adekunle watched her. He had seen thousands of people in his life. He had met presidents, governors, celebrities, investors, bankers, billionaires. He had sat across tables from men who could move millions with a signature. But the person who impressed him most that morning was a young accountant who had stopped to give a hungry stranger bread. He didn't know it yet, but that small act of kindness would eventually change the future of his company. Adesewa returned after 10 minutes. HR will see you. Adekunle nodded. Thank you. She pointed down the hallway. His office is the third door on the left. Adekunle stood. Thank you. She smiled. Good luck. He walked toward the office. The name on the door read, Adesewa Adeyemi, Human Resources Director. Adekunle stopped outside. He already knew the man. Adesewa had been with the company for 11 years. He had risen through the organization and become one of the most influential executives. He was also one of the names appearing repeatedly in Adekunle's private investigation. Adekunle knocked. Come in. He entered. Adesewa was sitting behind a large desk. He was 43 years old and wore an expensive suit. He barely looked up. Sit. Adekunle sat. What position? Any position. Adesewa finally looked at him. Any position? Yes. Cleaning? Yes. Security? If necessary. Maintenance? Yes. Adesewa leaned back. What's your name? Babatunde Adebayo. Age? 48. Education? Secondary school. Previous work? Construction sites. Warehouses. Small businesses. Where do you live? I don't have a permanent address. Adesewa sighed. Do you have references? No. Do you have identification? Yes. Bring it. Adekunle handed over the identification he had prepared. Adesewa examined it. Then he looked at Adekunle again. You understand this is a serious organization? Yes. We don't employ people who simply walk in from the street. I understand. There are procedures. I am willing to follow them. Adesewa looked at his clothes. Look at yourself. Adekunle remained silent. You expect to work here dressed like this? I can dress better if I get paid. Adesewa laughed. You think that's the problem? Adekunle said nothing. Adesewa leaned forward. Let me give you advice. Adekunle waited. Poor people like you need to understand where they belong. For a moment, the room felt smaller. Adekunle's eyes hardened. But he remained calm. He had been insulted before. He had been called many things before he became successful. He had been laughed at when he started his first company. He had been told he would fail. But hearing those words inside his own company hurt differently. Would you say the same thing if I were rich? Adekunle asked. Adesewa laughed. Rich people don't come here asking for cleaning jobs. Adekunle nodded slowly. I understand. Good. May I ask one question? Go ahead. Do you treat every poor applicant this way? Adesewa stared at him. You should be grateful I'm speaking to you. Adekunle stood. Thank you for your time. You're welcome. He walked out. But he didn't leave. He went to the restroom. Once inside, he locked the door. He stood in front of the mirror. For several seconds, he stared at the reflection. Then he reached into his clothes and removed a small phone. He sent one message. Begin checking Adesewa's finances. A response came within seconds. Understood. Adekunle put the phone away. He washed his hands. Then he walked back into the hallway. The investigation had officially begun. 2 days later, Adekunle received unexpected help from Marank Afolabi. Marank was 56 and had worked as a cleaner at Adebayo Holdings for almost 18 years. She was one of those employees who had become almost invisible to senior management. She cleaned offices. She emptied bins. She wiped tables. She knew where everyone worked. She knew who arrived early. She knew who left late. She knew which executives were kind and which ones treated cleaners like furniture. Adesewa introduced them. Ma, this is Babatunde. He wants to work. Marank looked at him. Can you work? Yes, Ma. Can you wake up early? Yes. Can you take instructions? Yes. Can you respect people? Adekunle paused. Yes. Marank nodded. Then you can work. She helped him get temporary cleaning work. For the first time in his life, Adekunle cleaned the floors of his own company. He woke before dawn. He boarded crowded buses. He stood in traffic. He ate cheap meals. He carried rubbish. He cleaned toilets. He wiped conference tables. He emptied bins. And he listened. He listened to everything. He discovered that people behaved differently when they thought nobody important was listening. Some employees complained about management. Some praised the owner. Others had never met him. He heard stories about missing money. He heard stories about employees being threatened. He heard stories about managers receiving gifts from contractors. One afternoon, while cleaning the finance department, Adekunle heard Adekunle Oladipo and Kahind Bakare talking. Did you see the new invoice? Adekunle whispered. The one for 185 million? Yes. What are they buying? Construction materials. For which project? None. Kahind looked around. Keep your voice down. Why? Because people are listening. Adekunle continued cleaning. Kahind lowered his voice. Everybody knows something is wrong. Then why doesn't anybody talk? Because people who talk lose their jobs. Adekunle paused. Only for a second. Then he continued. That evening, he found Adesewa in the cafeteria. Are you happy here? He asked. She looked surprised. Why? Just curious. She smiled. I used to be. What changed? People. What do you mean? She lowered her voice. Some managers became too powerful. Powerful? They do whatever they want. Does the owner know? She laughed. Which owner? Adekunle Adebayo. I've never met him. Never. No. Do you think he's a good man? She shrugged. I don't know him. What do people say? That he's a successful businessman. Anything else? They say he trusts his executives. Adekunle looked down. Adesewa continued. Maybe too much. Adekunle looked at her. You don't trust them? She hesitated. I don't trust everyone. Why? Because I've seen things. What things? She shook her head. Nothing I can prove. That answer stayed with Adekunle. A week later, he found his first major piece of evidence. It was a payment invoice. 185 million naira. The supplier was a company called Sunrise Meridian Supplies. Adekunle had never heard of it. He photographed the document and sent it to Tajudeen Ojo, his private investigator. Tajudeen investigated the company. The result came back that night. Sir, Sunrise Meridian was registered 8 months ago. Who owns it? We are still checking. Keep going. 3 hours later, Tajudeen called. We found the connection. Tell me. The registered director is related to Segan Lawal's wife. Adekunle became silent. Segan Lawal was the company's procurement director, a man he had trusted for years. How much has gone through that company? Approximately 600 million. Adekunle closed his eyes. Keep digging. The next discovery was worse. There were more companies. Different names. Different addresses. Different directors. But the same pattern. Money entered. Invoices were approved. The money disappeared. And the people connected to those companies were somehow linked to executives inside Adebayo Holdings. Adekunle realized he wasn't dealing with isolated corruption. It was organized. The next person he investigated was Bode Fashola, the chief financial officer. Bode had worked with him for 16 years. He had helped Adekunle survive the difficult early years. He had been present when the company nearly collapsed. He had been there when the first billion naira contract was signed. Adekunle had considered him family. Now evidence suggested that Bode had diverted more than 3 billion naira. The betrayal was painful. But Adekunle kept working. Then something happened that made the investigation personal. Adesewa's father became seriously ill. She needed money for treatment. She applied for assistance through the company's employee welfare program. Her application was rejected. The official reason was incomplete documentation. But Adekunle knew her documents were complete. He had seen them. He asked Tajudeen to investigate. Tajudeen discovered that someone in HR had deliberately delayed the application. Adekunle knew who. Alyawazian. That evening, Adesewa sat alone in her office crying. Adekunle knocked. She quickly wiped her face. Come in. What happened? Nothing. You're crying. I'm fine. You don't look fine. She hesitated. My father is sick. Adekunle felt sympathy. I'm sorry. I need money for his treatment. Why didn't the company help? I applied. And they rejected it. Why? They said my documents were incomplete. Were they? No. She opened her folder. I submitted everything. Adekunle examined the documents. They were complete. How much do you need? She shook her head. No. I can help. You don't have money. Adekunle smiled. You don't know that. She looked at him. I know enough. That night, Adekunle made a call. Find the best hospital for her father. Yes, sir. Pay the bills anonymously. Understood. The next day, Adesewa received a call from the hospital. Someone had paid the deposit. She became suspicious. She approached Adekunle. Babatunde. Yes. Did you do something? No. My father's hospital bill was paid. That's good. Who paid it? I don't know. She stared at him. "You're lying." Adekunle laughed. "Why?" "Because you're strange." "How?" "You ask questions nobody else asks." "Maybe I'm curious." She shook her head. Then she studied his hands. "Your hands don't look like the hands of a poor man." Adekunle froze. "What? You don't have the scars." "What scars?" "People who have done manual labor for years usually have rough hands." He looked at his hands. She continued. "You also speak differently." "How?" "You speak like someone who went to university." Adekunle smiled. "Maybe I learned from listening." She laughed. "Maybe." But from that day, Adesewa began watching him. Adekunle knew his disguise was becoming fragile. Still, he couldn't reveal himself. Not yet. He needed evidence. The turning point came one night. It was almost midnight. Most employees had gone home. Adekunle had volunteered to clean the executive floor. He heard voices coming from the conference room. He stopped. The voices belonged to Sigan, Bode, Aluwazian, and an external contractor named Boyega Adisa. Adekunle moved quietly toward the door. Sigan was speaking. "The money must leave before Friday." Bode replied, "That's too fast. The board meeting is next week." Aluwazian asked, "What about the owner?" Sigan laughed. "The owner doesn't know anything." Boyega laughed. "He trusts you people too much." Bode asked, "What if he comes back?" Sigan shook his head. "He won't." "How do you know?" "Because we have people around him." Adekunle stopped breathing. Bode asked, "What do you mean?" Sigan answered, "His schedule, his meetings, his travel, everything." Adekunle's eyes narrowed. Someone had access to his private information. Someone close to him. He quietly began recording. Then a chair moved. Adekunle pushed his cleaning cart away. He turned the corner. A few seconds later, Sigan stepped into the hallway. He looked around. Adekunle kept cleaning. Sigan stared at him, then walked away. Adekunle didn't move until he was certain the man was gone. He had enough evidence now, but he needed to know how far the conspiracy reached. The answer came the following week. Adekunle was called into the security office. Femi Balogun was waiting. "We have a problem." "What problem?" "A phone was stolen." Adekunle frowned. "I didn't steal anything." "The phone was found in your bag." Adekunle looked at the bag. A smartphone was inside. He knew immediately. It had been planted. "That's not mine." Femi shook his head. "It's in your bag." "I didn't put it there." "Then who did?" "I don't know." "You're fired." Adekunle looked at him. "I want to see the CCTV." Femi hesitated. The camera wasn't working. Adekunle almost smiled. He knew the cameras were working. He had personally approved the security system upgrade. Someone had deliberately disabled the footage. Adesewa entered the room. "What happened?" Femi explained. She immediately looked at Adekunle. "He didn't steal anything." "You don't know that." "I know him." Femi laughed. "You've known him for a few weeks." "That's enough." She looked at Adekunle. "Don't worry." Then she turned to Femi. "I want to report this." "To HR?" "Yes." Femi laughed. "Do you think HR will listen to you?" "I'll go higher." The threat was clear. Adesewa was becoming dangerous to the people involved. That evening, she received an anonymous message. "Stop asking questions." She ignored it. Another arrived. "You don't know who you are fighting." She blocked the number. A third arrived. "Think about your father." This time she became afraid. She called Adekunle. "Babatunde." "What happened?" "Someone threatened me." He listened carefully. "Where are you?" "At home." "Stay there." "Why?" "Because I don't want you going anywhere tonight." "Who are these people?" "I don't know yet." "But you sound like you know something." Adekunle paused. I know enough to tell you that you should be careful. That night, he arranged security around her home. He didn't tell her. He didn't want to frighten her further. The next morning, Adekunle made a decision. The investigation was over. It was time to reveal himself. He called to Judine. Arrange an emergency board meeting. When? Friday. Are you revealing your identity? Adekunle smiled. Yes. Friday arrived. At 9:15 in the morning, the board members gathered. Segan was nervous. Bode was sweating. Adebayo kept checking his phone. Adekunle Adebayo, the current managing director, sat at the head of the table. Then the door opened. Adekunle walked in. But he wasn't dressed as Babatunde. He wore a dark blue suit. His hair was neatly styled. His beard was gone. His shoes were polished. The room became silent. Adekunle stood immediately. Mr. Adebayo. Everyone else stood. Segan's face turned white. Bode stared at him. Adebayo looked as though he had seen a ghost. Adekunle smiled. Good morning. Nobody answered. Please sit. They sat. Adekunle placed a folder on the table. For several weeks, I have been conducting an investigation. Segan swallowed. Investigation into what, sir? Adekunle looked at him. You know. Segan said nothing. Adekunle opened the first folder. Fake suppliers. The second, inflated contracts. The third, unauthorized payments. The fourth, ghost companies. The fifth, threats against employees. Bode lowered his head. Adekunle looked around the room. I came to this company disguised as a poor man. Everyone froze. Adebayo's eyes widened. Adekunle continued. I asked for a cleaning job. Segan's hands began to shake. I was insulted. He looked at Adebayo. I was told poor people did not belong here. Adebayo couldn't speak. I was told I was not successful enough to work in this company. Adekunle leaned forward. You were speaking to the owner. Adebayo's face collapsed. Adekunle pressed a button. The screen behind him came alive. A recording played. The executives inside the room heard their own voices discussing stolen money. When the recording ended, nobody spoke. Adekunle turned toward Segan. Do you want to explain? Segan shook his head. No, sir. Why? I don't know what this is. Adekunle smiled. You don't? No. Then perhaps the bank statements will help. Another screen appeared. Transfers. Invoices. Company registrations. Names. Amounts. Dates. Everything. Bode finally spoke. Sir, I can explain. Adekunle looked at him. You had 16 years to explain. Bode's eyes filled with tears. I made mistakes. 3 billion naira isn't a mistake. Bode lowered his head. Then Adekunle looked toward Adebayo. And you? Adebayo said nothing. You rejected an employee's medical assistance because she was inconvenient. Adebayo shook his head. Sir, you told a poor man he didn't belong in this company. Adebayo couldn't answer. You forgot that the person you were insulting built the company. The room remained silent. Then Adekunle said, Bring her in. The door opened. Adesewa walked inside. She looked nervous. She saw Adekunle. Her eyes widened. Babatunde. Adekunle smiled. Hello, Adesewa. She covered her mouth. You. He nodded. She slowly understood. The man who had worked beside her. The man she had given bread. The man she had defended. The man she had suspected was hiding something. Was the billionaire owner. Adekunle stood. Adesewa, come here. She approached. He handed her a document.
Kindness is never wasted, Adesewa. Welcome to your new office, Managing Director.
She looked at it. Her eyes widened. What is this? Your appointment. Appointment. Managing Director. She stared at him. Sir, I don't understand. You do. I can't be managing director. Why? I'm just an accountant. Not anymore. But there are people more qualified. There are. There are people with more experience. There are. She looked confused. Then why me? Adekunle smiled. Because experience without character can destroy a company. He paused. You gave food to a hungry stranger when you thought he had nothing. You defended someone everyone else ignored. You refused to join people who were abusing their power. And when they threatened you, you still refused to stop asking questions. He looked into her eyes. I don't need another executive who knows how to make money. I need a leader who knows how to value people. Adesewa began to cry. Adekunle placed a hand on her shoulder. You earned this. The room erupted in applause when the announcement was made public. Employees gathered in the auditorium. Adekunle stood before them. He told them everything. He told them why he had disguised himself. He told them what he discovered. He told them about the corruption. And he told them about Adesewa. A company is not its building, he said. It is not its bank account. It is not its expensive offices. It is its people. He looked toward the cleaners. I cleaned these floors. Everyone became quiet. I stood at that gate. He looked toward the security department. I was treated like I was worthless. He paused. But one person showed me kindness. He pointed toward Adesewa. She didn't ask whether I was rich. She didn't ask whether I could help her. She saw a hungry man, and she gave him food. Adekunle's voice became emotional. That is what leadership should look like. The company changed after that day. New financial controls were established. Every procurement contract was reviewed. Employees received anonymous reporting channels. The HR department was restructured. Staff welfare policies were strengthened. Executives were required to undergo ethics training. Managers were warned that disrespecting junior workers would no longer be tolerated. And Adesewa became the face of the company's new culture. She visited departments. She spoke with cleaners. She sat with security guards. She ate lunch with junior employees. She listened. She remembered what it felt like to be invisible. One afternoon, several months after her appointment, Adekunle visited the company. This time, he didn't disguise himself. Adesewa met him at the entrance. Welcome, sir. He smiled. How is my company? She laughed. Our company is doing well. Adekunle smiled. That's better. They walked together through the lobby. He stopped beside the large company slogan, Building Africa, Creating the Future. He looked at it for a moment. Then he said, We should add something. What? Building people. Adesewa smiled. I like that. Adekunle looked at her. Do you remember the first day we met? She laughed. I remember giving you bread. You saved my investigation. I didn't know you were the owner. That made it better. She shook her head. You deceived me. I did. You let me believe you were homeless. I was pretending. Do you know how many times I wondered where you came from? Adekunle laughed. Probably many. She smiled. Then she became serious. Why did you really do it? Adekunle looked through the glass window at the employees outside. Because I wanted to know who people were when they thought I had nothing. And what did you learn? He thought for a moment. I learned that money changes how people see you. She nodded. I learned that some people respect wealth more than humanity. She nodded again. But I also learned that kindness can come from the person with the least. He looked at her. And sometimes, the richest person in the room isn't the person with the most money. Adesewa smiled. Then who is it? The person with the most character. Years later, the story of the billionaire who disguised himself as a poor man became part of Adebayo Holdings' culture. Every new employee heard it during orientation. Every manager heard it during leadership training. The story was never told to embarrass anyone. It was told as a reminder. A reminder that appearances could deceive. A reminder that power should never become arrogance. A reminder that the lowest paid employee still deserved respect. A reminder that a cleaner could possess more dignity than an executive. A reminder that kindness could change a person's life. And whenever someone asked Adekunle what inspired him to appoint Adesewa as managing director, he always gave the same answer. She passed a test she didn't know she was taking. People would ask what test. He would smile. The test of character. Then he would tell them about the morning he stood outside his own company. He would tell them about the guards who laughed. He would tell them about the HR manager who humiliated him. He would tell them about the executives who stole from him. But most importantly, he would tell them about the woman who offered him bread. Because the billionaire had entered his own company looking for corruption. He found it. He had entered looking for betrayal. He found that too. But he also found something he had almost forgotten existed. Kindness. And that kindness changed everything. Adekunle had started the company believing money could build a better future. But after his experience, he understood something deeper. Money could build hospitals. Money could build schools. Money could build factories. Money could build skyscrapers. But money could not build character. Character had to be chosen. Every day. In every interaction. Especially when nobody important was watching. That was why the final message he placed in the company's main lobby was simple. It appeared beneath a portrait of himself and another of Adesewa. Never judge a person by what they wear. Never measure a person by what they have. And never mistake poverty for worthlessness. Because the stranger standing before you may be more valuable than you realize. The employee you ignore may become your greatest leader. The person you humiliate may one day be the person signing your appointment letter. And the person you believe has nothing may possess something money can never buy. Character. Adekunle Adebayo learned that lesson while standing at the gate of his own company. Adesewa Ogunleye carried that lesson into leadership. And Adebayo Holdings was never the same again. The billionaire had gone undercover to discover who truly deserved his trust. In the end, he discovered that the woman with the least power had the greatest heart. And that was why, when he finally handed her the keys to his company, he didn't simply say she had earned a promotion. He said something much more important. You showed me that when everything else is removed, money, clothes, status, titles and power, the person we truly are is what remains. He looked at her. And that is the person I trust to lead. The applause that followed seemed to last forever. And somewhere at the back of the auditorium, among the cleaners, drivers, security guards, junior workers and office assistants, people who had once felt invisible began to understand something. They mattered. Their work mattered. Their dignity mattered. And perhaps the most powerful lesson of all was this. You never really know who is standing in front of you. So treat people well. Not because they may become rich. Not because they may become powerful. Not because they may one day reward you. Treat them well because they are human. That was the lesson Adekunle learned. That was the lesson Adesewa represented. And that was the lesson that ultimately transformed an empire.
If you like this story, please do like to comment your thoughts and share your little experience about this. Thank you, and we'll see you on another video. God bless you.